She understood the words that were about to kill him. And she had exactly 180 seconds to decide if his life was worth more than her invisibility. The bomb had already been planted by the time Kora heard about it. She was sitting on her crate outside the Radiant Seoul Hotel, the one spot in this entire glittering city where a girl with dark skin and a basket of silk threads could disappear in plain sight. The jasmine perfume of the women passing through the revolving doors cost more than her monthly meals. Nobody looked at her. Nobody ever did. That was their mistake. Her fingers braided the silk automatically, red over gold, gold over crimson, while her ears did the real work. 2 men stood by the marble pillar, 6 feet to her left. Russian. Siberian dialect, specifically, the kind that snarled at the back of the throat like a chained dog. Most people in Seoul wouldn't recognize it as language at all. To Kora, it was as clear as a gunshot in an empty room. The detonator is slave to the pressure plate, the taller one, Piotr, muttered to the one they called Yuri. The moment the Ice King sits, the circuit primes. When he shifts into drive, he drew his thumb across his throat. Kora's fingers stopped. The silk thread fell from her hands into the dirt. Her heart didn't race. It dropped, straight down, like a stone through cold water. Because she knew exactly who the Ice King was. She had watched him walk past her 402 times without once blinking in her direction. Director Sang-hoon. The man whose shadow made other men step aside. The man who wore silence like armor and walked through crowds like they were smoke. His car, the black armored sedan, sat 30 feet away, gleaming under the hotel lights. His driver, Ro, was already at the door. Kora looked at Piotr. Then at Yuri. Then at the 2 Korean guards flanking the entrance who worked for Sang-hoon and had no idea that 2 of their Russian consultants had just signed their boss's death warrant in a language they couldn't understand. She had 3 options. Scream in Korean, and Piotr would put a bullet in her before the second syllable. Run for the police. The car would be ash before she reached the corner. Or she could do nothing, sit back down, pick up her silk thread, and survive the night like she had survived every other night. Invisible, alone, and breathing. Nobody would blame her. Nobody even knew she existed. Sang-hoon appeared through the revolving doors. He was adjusting his cufflinks. He had 25 steps to the car. Kora stood up. If you want to know what she said next, and why it changed everything, stay with me. This story is only getting started. 25 steps. Kora counted them the way her father once counted syllables in a poem. Precisely, because precision was the difference between meaning and disaster. 24. The Russian guards hadn't moved. Piotr was still leaning against the pillar, cigarette burning between 2 thick fingers, watching Sang-hoon the way a crocodile watches something walk toward the water's edge. Unhurried. Certain. Yuri had his hands in his pockets, but his right shoulder was angled forward. The posture of a man whose fingers were already wrapped around something cold and metal beneath the fabric. 23. Kora's legs moved before her mind gave permission. She had no weapon. No badge. No name that meant anything in this city. What she had was a voice, 2 languages nobody expected her to speak, and a mother who once told her that courage wasn't the absence of fear, it was the decision that something else mattered more. 22 steps. 21. She crossed the velvet rope. A hand slammed into her chest like a wall. One of Sang-hoon's Korean guards. Broad, expressionless, immovable. He looked down at her the way people look at something they nearly stepped on. No soliciting, he said flatly. Move back. The car, Kora said. Her voice cracked on the second word. She hated it for that. There's something wrong with the car. You have to stop him. The guard's eyes didn't even sharpen. He'd heard 100 distractions. Pickpocket setups, beggars with rehearsed emergencies, journalists with fake crises. He had a system for all of them. His hand pushed her back harder. Last warning. 18 steps. Sang-hoon wasn't slowing down. Kora looked past the guard's shoulder. She looked at the driver, Ro, holding the car door open with the patience of a man who had performed this exact movement 10,000 times. Ro wasn't looking at his boss. He was looking at Piotr. Something cold moved through her chest. Why is the driver looking at the guard? She didn't have time to answer that question. She had time for exactly one move. She ducked under the guard's arm, lunged forward, and grabbed the velvet rope post with both hands, swinging it sideways so it clattered and sparked against the marble floor like a gunshot. Every head in the driveway turned. Sang-hoon stopped. For the first time in 402 days, his eyes found her. Not through her, not past her. They landed on her like a searchlight. Cold. Surgical. Alive with a fury that made the air between them feel pressurized. "Who?" he said quietly, to no one in particular. "Is that?" Behind her, she heard Piotr shift his weight off the pillar. He had heard her voice. And now he was moving. Piotr's hand was inside his jacket. Kora saw it in her peripheral vision. That slow, deliberate reach, the kind that didn't hurry because it didn't need to. He had done this before. Many times. The cigarette was still burning between his lips like he was simply stretching. Nobody else saw it. The Korean guards were looking at Kora. Sang-hoon was looking at Kora. Ro was looking at the ground with the concentrated stillness of a man trying very hard to look innocent. Kora had 3 seconds before Piotr's hand cleared the fabric. She made the most dangerous decision of her life. She opened her mouth and spoke. Not in Korean, not in English, but in Russian. Flawless. High society Russian. The kind her mother had spoken at St. Petersburg Conservatoire recitals. The kind that didn't belong anywhere near a girl in dusty sandals holding a basket of silk threads. "Take your hand off that weapon," she said, her eyes cutting directly to Piotr. "Because if you pull it, every camera on this building will have your face, your hand, and your syndicate signature move recorded in 4K. And the Volkovs don't clean up messes, they bury them. Along with the people who made them." The cigarette fell from Piotr's lips. Yuri went completely still. The entire driveway held its breath. Sang-hoon turned slowly toward his Russian consultants. He said nothing. He didn't need to. The silence coming off him was its own language. Ancient, lethal, and perfectly fluent. His eyes moved from Piotr's frozen hand to Kora's face, then back again, assembling something in his mind with the cold efficiency of a man who had survived 40 years in a world where hesitation was a cause of death. "Step away from the car," he said quietly. "To everyone. To no one." The words landed like a blade on marble. Ro didn't move. That was the second mistake he made tonight. The first was agreeing to hold the door. Sang-hoon noticed. Kora watched him notice. Watched that almost invisible tightening at the corner of his jaw, that microscopic recalibration behind his eyes. He filed it away without reacting. That was what made him dangerous. Not his anger. His patience. He looked at Kora again. Fully this time. "You speak Russian," he said. It wasn't a question. It was an accusation dressed as an observation. "My mother was from St. Petersburg," Kora said. "She taught me that the most dangerous conversations happen in languages the wrong people assume you don't understand." Sang-hoon was quiet for 4 full seconds. Then, only then, he looked at his car. At the seat. At the door Ro was still holding open with trembling hands. "Bring the bomb unit," he said into his earpiece. He didn't move toward the car. But he didn't move toward Kora either. Piotr's eyes found hers across the driveway. They said one thing clearly. "You just made a very permanent enemy." The bomb squad arrived in 11 minutes. Kora knew because she counted every second of them. Standing in the cold driveway, surrounded by men with guns, while Piotr's eyes carved holes into the side of her face from across the cordon. Sang-hoon had not spoken to her again. He stood 20 feet away, phone pressed to his ear, his back a wall of expensive fabric and controlled fury. 3 of his loyalist guards formed a loose triangle around him, not protecting him from outside threats, protecting him from the information he had just received and hadn't yet decided what to do with. The bomb technician emerged from beneath the car in 4 minutes flat. He held up a device the size of a paperback book, wrapped in black electrical tape, 2 wires trailing from it like severed veins. The driveway went silent in a way that had nothing to do with sound. Sang-hoon looked at the device. Then at Ro. Ro was crying. Not loudly, there were no sobs, no gasping. Just tears moving silently down his face like he had already accepted something the rest of them hadn't caught up to yet. 10 years of loyal service leaking out of him in the one currency he had left. It was supposed to be me, Ro whispered. They said. They promised if I cooperated, my family. Your family, Sang-hoon repeated. His voice was so quiet it was almost gentle. That gentleness was the most terrifying thing Kora had ever heard. They threatened your family. So you decided to threaten mine. Ro's knees buckled. A guard caught him before he hit the ground, not out of kindness. Out of protocol. Sang-hoon turned away from him like he was already gone. He walked toward Kora. Every step deliberate. Every step closing the distance between the world she lived in and the world she had just detonated herself into. She didn't step back. Her mother hadn't raised her to step back. But her hands, hidden in the folds of her skirt, were shaking badly enough to rattle the silk threads in her basket. He stopped 2 feet from her. This close, she could see the faint scar beneath his left jaw. The gray threading through his hair at the temple. The way his eyes didn't just look at things. They processed them, catalogued them, filed them somewhere permanent and retrievable. You knew about the pressure plate, he said. I heard them talking. In Siberian dialect. Yes. You understood every word. Every word. He studied her face for a long moment. How old are you? 17. Something shifted behind his eyes. Not softness. Kora doubted this man had softness anywhere in his body. Something more dangerous than softness. Recognition. What's your name? He asked. Kora. He was quiet. Then, who sent you? Her stomach dropped. He didn't believe her. Who sent you? 3 words. Quietly delivered. Devastating in their implication. Kora felt the accusation land in her chest like a fist. After everything. After she had stood up when every instinct screamed sit down. After she had walked into the crosshairs of 2 Volkov assassins with nothing but her voice and her mother's Russian. This man was looking at her like she was the threat. Nobody sent me, she said. I sit outside your hotel every day. I sell silk threads. I heard them talking and You heard them. He said it flatly. Like it was the least believable sentence he'd ever encountered. A 17-year-old street girl. Fluent in Siberian criminal dialect. Who just happened to be positioned directly outside my hotel. Tonight. Of all nights. When he laid it out like that, Kora heard how it sounded. She also heard the trap closing. Check my basket, she said. Check my crate. I've been sitting in that exact spot for over a year. Ask your own guards. They've walked past me 400 times. My guards also walked past a bomb, Sang-hoon said. Silence. He turned to the nearest guard, a sharp-faced man named Tae-jun who moved like someone who had never once been surprised. Detain her. Separate room. Nobody speaks to her until I get there. You're arresting me? Kora's voice cracked. Not from fear this time. From fury. Raw, electric, 17-year-old fury that had been compressed under years of invisibility and was now finding the only exit available. I just saved your life. You just inserted yourself into a Volkov operation at the exact moment it failed, Sang-hoon said. Those are not the same thing. Tae-jun's hand closed around her arm. Kora didn't struggle. Struggling would prove nothing. But she looked directly at Sang-hoon as they pulled her away, held his gaze with everything she had, every ounce of her father's precision and her mother's fire, and she said, in perfect Russian, loud enough for the remaining guards to hear. Pyotr told Yuri the operation was authorized from inside. Not from Moscow. From inside your own organization. I didn't tell you that before because you didn't ask. But since you've decided I'm the enemy, she let Taejun pull her another step before finishing. I suppose that information dies with my cooperation. Everything stopped. Sang-hoon's jaw tightened. He raised one hand. Taejun stopped pulling. The driveway was absolutely silent except for the distant sound of police sirens growing closer and Rose quiet, broken weeping from somewhere behind the cordon. Sang-hoon looked at Kora for a long time. Then he said something nobody expected. Let her go. Taejun released her arm. Walk with me, Sang-hoon said to Kora. Not a request. Not quite a command. Something colder and more complicated than both. Where? Kora asked. Somewhere the police can't hear what you're about to tell me. They walked through a service corridor that smelled like bleach and cold metal. No cameras. Kora noticed that immediately. Sang-hoon had chosen this route deliberately. Every turn away from the hotel's main surveillance grid, every step deeper into a part of the building that didn't exist on any floor plan a civilian would ever see. The kind of corridor that had witnessed conversations nobody was meant to survive. Her silk basket swung against her hip with each step. She gripped it like it was the last familiar thing in the world. Sang-hoon stopped at a steel door, pushed it open without a key, and gestured her inside. A bare room. One table. 2 chairs. A single bulb throwing yellow light over everything like a confession. He didn't sit. He stood at the far wall with his arms folded and looked at her. What exactly did Piotr say? He asked. Word for word. Don't interpret. Don't summarize. Every syllable. Kora repeated it. Verbatim. The Siberian dialect reproduced so precisely that something moved across Sang-hoon's face. Not surprise, but the specific discomfort of a man hearing his own death sentence read back to him in his enemy's voice. When she finished, the room was very still. The authorization from inside, he said quietly. Did he name anyone? No. Did he indicate a rank? A department? He said. Kora paused, replaying the audio in her mind with the precision her father had spent years cultivating in her. The one who counts the money already knows the car won't come back. That was the exact phrase. Sang-hoon unfolded his arms. That sentence had hit something. She could see it, that almost invisible flinch behind his eyes, there and gone in less than a second. A man who controlled everything scrambling to control his own face. The one who counts the money, he repeated. Yes. He was quiet for so long that Kora started counting the seconds again out of instinct. She reached 19 before he spoke. There are 3 people in my organization who have full visibility of my financial operations. He said it like he was thinking out loud, which told Kora he wasn't. He was watching her reaction to each word. Testing her. Still testing her. One of them recommended tonight's route change. Different car. Different time. Everything the bomb was calibrated for. The air in the room changed. Kora felt it, that specific atmospheric shift when a conversation stops being an interrogation and becomes something far more dangerous. Shared information. Mutual exposure. The moment 2 people know something together that could destroy them both. You're telling me that, she said carefully, because you want me to understand what I've walked into. I'm telling you that, Sang-hoon said, because whoever is inside my organization already knows the bomb failed. Which means they know something interrupted it. He looked at her directly. They'll be looking for you by morning. Kora's blood went cold. I don't exist, she said. I'm invisible. Nobody knows my. You existed enough to save my life, he said. That's enough. Sang-hoon made one phone call. He didn't explain it to Kora. He simply stepped to the corner of the room, spoke 4 sentences in Korean too low for her to fully catch, and hung up. Then he looked at her with the expression of a man who had already made a decision and was now simply waiting for the world to catch up. You can't go back to the street, he said. That street is how I eat, Kora said. That street is where they'll find you. He moved to the door. You have two options. I place you somewhere safe until my team identifies the insider. Or you walk out of this building alone tonight and see how far you get before the Volkovs realize a 17-year-old girl is the only loose thread in a failed assassination. Kora looked at the door. Then at him. You're not offering me protection, she said. You're offering me a cage with better lighting. Something crossed his face. Not amusement exactly. The ghost of it. Yes, he said simply. But you'll be alive to complain about it. She followed him. Not because she trusted him. Because Pyotr's eyes had said everything she needed to know about what happened to loose threads in the Volkov world. They moved through two more service corridors before emerging into an underground car park. A different vehicle waited, black, unmarked, engine already running. Taejun stood at the rear door, his face carrying the particular blankness of a man who had been told not to ask questions tonight. Kora stopped walking. Something was wrong. She didn't know what it was yet, just that specific pressure behind her sternum that her father used to call the body's first language. Older than words. Faster than thought. She looked at the car. At Taejun. At the way he was standing, weight on his left foot, right hand loose at his side. Then she looked at Sang-hoon, who was already moving toward the vehicle with the confidence of a man operating in his own controlled environment. Who called the car? Kora asked. Sang-hoon paused. Taejun arranged it. When? While we were in the room. You were on the phone for 40 seconds, Kora said. This car was already running when we got here. It was called before you made that decision. The car park went very still. Sang-hoon turned slowly toward Taejun. Taejun's right hand was no longer loose. Step away from the vehicle, Sang-hoon said quietly. Taejun didn't step away. His jaw worked silently for a moment, a man calculating odds he already knew were against him, and then his eyes found Kora's with an expression she felt in her spine. Not anger. Not desperation. Apology. Which was somehow worse than either. Taejun spoke first. I have a daughter, he said. She's 9. They've had her since Tuesday. The car park absorbed those words like concrete absorbs blood, completely, without echo. Sang-hoon stood perfectly still. Kora watched his face cycle through something she hadn't seen on it before. Not anger. Not calculation. Something older and more corrosive than both. Betrayal had a specific weight when it came from someone you had trusted with your life. How long? Sang-hoon asked. 6 months. Taejun's voice was stripped of everything except the raw mechanical effort of producing sound. They approached me after the Busan incident. Said they already had enough to bury me. The daughter was insurance. 6 months, Sang-hoon repeated. Quiet as a closing door. Every route. Every schedule change. Every security rotation. Taejun wasn't confessing anymore. He was emptying himself. They knew everything because I told them everything. Tonight was supposed to be the last operation. They promised after tonight. They promised. Sang-hoon's voice finally shifted. Just slightly, just enough. Like a fault line moving. Taejun. You have spent 15 years watching what happens to people who believe Volkov promises. Taejun closed his eyes. Kora looked at the running car. Then at Taejun. Then at Sang-hoon. She was doing the mathematics of the room. Exits, angles, the weight of the gun she could see outlined against Taejun's jacket, the distance between all three of them and every possible version of the next 10 seconds. The insider Pyotr mentioned, she said carefully. The one who counts the money. That's not Taejun. Both men looked at her. Taejun runs security. He controls routes and schedules. She kept her voice flat and precise the way her father had taught her to deliver an argument. No emotion, just architecture. But Pyotr specifically said the one who counts the money knew the car wouldn't come back. That's financial access. Someone above operations. Sang-hoon's eyes didn't move from her face. Taejun is the distraction, Kora said. He was meant to be found. While you're focused on him, the real insider walks clean. The running car's engine seemed suddenly very loud. Sang-hoon turned back to Tae-jun. Who else knows what you told them? Nobody. They were specific about that. Compartmentalized. I never met anyone above Pyoda's level except... Tae-jun stopped. Except who? Tae-jun opened his eyes. They were wet and devastated and completely certain. He said a name. One name. 4 syllables. Korean. Kora didn't recognize it. But Sang-hoon, the man who had not flinched at a bomb, had not broken at betrayal, had not shown fear once in the entire hour she had known him, went completely, absolutely white. The name was Kwon Byung-soo. Sang-hoon's CFO. His mother's younger brother. The man who had stood at his father's funeral and wept loudest. The man who had built the financial architecture of everything Sang-hoon had spent 20 years constructing. Every legitimate business, every laundered asset, every account that separated the Ice King from a prison cell. Family. Kora watched Sang-hoon absorb it. Watched the color drain from his face and return as something harder and darker than what had been there before. Like stone replacing skin. He didn't speak for 11 seconds. She counted every one. Then he pulled out his phone. Don't, Tae-jun said urgently. If Byung-soo sees any movement from your number tonight, he'll trigger the contingency. He has a dead man protocol. If he doesn't check in by midnight, everything goes to the prosecutors. Every record. Every account. Every name. Sang-hoon stopped dialing. How long until midnight? Kora asked. Tae-jun checked his watch. 43 minutes. The mathematics of the room had just become catastrophic. 43 minutes to locate a CFO who knew he'd been exposed, who had a prosecutor's file loaded and ready, who had spent 6 months building an exit while the man he was betraying walked past a street girl every day without stopping to wonder why the world felt slightly wrong. Where is he now? Sang-hoon asked. He was at the East Tower office at 9. After that, Tae-jun shook his head. He'll have moved the moment he heard the bomb failed. He has a protocol for that too. He planned everything, Sang-hoon. Everything. He planned everything except her. Sang-hoon looked at Kora. Kora felt the weight of that land on her shoulders like something physical. She was 17 years old. She had 23,001 in her basket, a dead father's linguistics gift, and a dead mother's Russian accent. She was not equipped for this. She was not built for this. She had simply been present for it, which, in this world she was rapidly learning, was the same as being responsible for it. The financial records, she said. If Byung-soo sends them to prosecutors, what happens? 40 people go to prison, Sang-hoon said flatly. Half of them are innocent. Leverage he collected over years. People who owe me favors, people I protected, people whose names appear in documents they don't even know exist. And you. I burn completely. Kora looked at the car. The engine was still running. Tae-jun had called it for the Volkovs, but it was here, it was running, and 43 minutes was not enough time for anything careful. I know where he is, she said quietly. Both men stared at her. 3 weeks ago, Kora said. 2 men spoke Mandarin outside the hotel. They mentioned a safe house address. Byung-soo walked past 30 seconds later and checked his phone. She paused. He wasn't checking messages. He was confirming the address he'd just heard. Sang-hoon grabbed his jacket. Get in the car, he said. You still don't trust me, Kora said. I can see it. No, he said. But I'm running out of people who haven't tried to kill me tonight. He held the door open. Move. They found Byung-soo with 19 minutes to spare. A narrow building in Mapo district. The kind of address that didn't appear on business registrations or tax filings, the kind that only existed in the memories of people who were never supposed to remember it. Kora had remembered it perfectly. She always did. Sang-hoon didn't knock. The door came off its frame in one movement, and Byung-soo was already reaching for his laptop when Tae-jun crossed the room and closed his hand around the older man's wrist like a vice. The laptop clattered to the floor. The dead man application, open, countdown visible, 17 minutes remaining, sat on the screen like a ticking mouth. Byung-soo looked at Sang-hoon. Sang-hoon looked at his uncle. 40 years, Sang-hoon said. That was all. Just that. But the two words carried the entire architecture of a life. Every meal, every funeral, every whispered strategy session, every moment of inherited trust, and dropped it on the floor between them like something that would never be picked up again. Byung-soo didn't beg. Kora respected him slightly for that. In the cold, distant way you respect a predator for its honesty. The organization was becoming something your father would not recognize, Byung-soo said. I tried to redirect it. You wouldn't listen. So you sold me to the Volkovs. I accelerated an ending that was already coming. Sang-hoon crossed the room in 4 steps, took the laptop from the floor, and placed it in front of his uncle. Cancel it. And then what? Byung-soo said. You forgive me. We continue. And then nothing, Sang-hoon said. Cancel it. Because the alternative is I let the countdown finish, let 40 innocent people burn, and then spend whatever remains of my life making sure you feel every one of those consequences personally. He leaned down until he was level with the older man's eyes. You know me well enough to know that's not a threat. It's a schedule. Byung-soo cancelled it with 11 minutes remaining. The room exhaled. Kora stood in the doorway holding her silk basket, watching the most powerful criminal in Seoul dismantle his own family with the quiet efficiency of a man removing a splinter. Clean. Necessary. Permanent. She should have felt relief. She felt hollowed out instead. Sang-hoon straightened. He turned to look at her across the room. This man who had walked past her 402 times, who had looked through her like she was weather, who had accused her of conspiracy before he had thought to say thank you. He reached into his jacket. Don't, Kora said. I told you. I don't want your money. It's not money, he said. He held out a single item. A card. Cream-colored, embossed, carrying nothing except an address and a start date. Kora looked at it. Seonghwa Academy. Seoul's most elite institution. Starting Monday. You can't buy what I did tonight, she said. I know, Sang-hoon said. I'm not buying it. I'm answering it. He paused. You told me not to let you be invisible again. I'm keeping that promise the only way I know how. Kora took the card. She didn't smile. Neither did he. This wasn't that kind of story. 6 months later, she sat in the penthouse of Congdae Plaza, a silk thread tied around her wrist, listening to 2 Italian delegates whisper in Sicilian dialect about a contract they believed Sang-hoon couldn't possibly understand. He entered the room and looked at her. Not through her. Never again through her. What do you have? He asked quietly. Kora set down her pen. Enough to bury them, she said. But Sang-hoon, the man they're working with in Tokyo? She paused. I've heard that name before. Outside this building. 8 months ago. Sang-hoon went still. Who? He asked. Kora looked at him steadily. Someone you're going to tell me you trust completely. The silk thread on her wrist caught the light. The Ice King sat down. She started invisible. She ended indispensable. But that last name she heard, that's a war nobody in this room is ready for. If this story broke something open in you, share it, save it, and tell me in the comments. Did Kora make the right choice walking into that building? Because I'm not sure she's safe. Not even now.